Hi everyone, and welcome to the info session for the Research MA Middle Eastern Studies and the Research MA Asian Studies at Leiden University. My name is Dr. Christiana Strava, and I am the chairperson and the coordinator of this Research MA program in area studies. But at the same time, I also work as a research supervisor and a lecturer in Middle Eastern Studies here in Leiden. Normally, today, I would be joined on my left and right by the study coordinator, Dr. Gita Winkel, and by Talisa Schilder, who is our current student member of the program board and who is also a research MA student in Asian Studies in her second year. And you'll get to hear from her later because she sent us a video all the way from Yogyakarta in Indonesia to tell us about her experience in the program. But unfortunately, right now, it is just me. And I will be giving you an overview of why we think you should choose to study Asia or the Middle East right now, but why you should also do that with us at Leiden University. Now, some of these headlines that are popping up on the slides, you might have seen them. Some of them are from a couple of years ago, but they all really much emphasize how much Asia and the Middle East is in the news media and global attention and is receiving a lot of contemporary economic, social, and political simply limelight because of all the topics that are happening in these areas. And this is one of the reasons why the study of Asia and the Middle East is of relevance to our contemporary world, but also for historical developments, to understand why it is that certain aspects, such as the Japanese princess marriage in today's world, has brought so much attention and how this differs from things that happened in the past. And one of the reasons why you should choose to do this with us as Leiden, well, actually, we have quite a few reasons for this. The main one is that in Leiden, we can offer you an international staff and student body. Many of the colleagues, my colleagues, who will be teaching courses and who will be supervising the research of potential students here come from a variety of backgrounds, from history, from anthropology, from political economy, but also from a variety of countries and continents across the world. Same thing applies to our student body. Many of our current students come from as far off as China and Thailand, some of them closer to Europe or the US, but all of them bring a unique perspective that make our program a true melting pot of different values and different interests that really enrich your experience while studying here in Leiden. Our staff also have a variety of disciplinary backgrounds, and this is what we think really brings value to what we offer, because we don't just study the Middle East or Asia from the perspective of contemporary events, but actually the expertise that the program and the Institute of Area Studies offers stretches all the way to pre-modern times. So whether you're interested in manuscripts or in Sanskrit, whether you're interested in current political global events, a lot of the things that we have here on offer are uniquely tied to an expert who will teach courses and who will be able to supervise your research. At the same time, we have materials. We have a rich library that actually has a world-renowned collection of manuscripts and books from locations across Asia and the Middle East. And we have the Asia Studies Library in Leiden, which is one of the most luxurious places where you can also study, but also conduct research. And outside of the immediate core of campus, we are in close proximity to a number of other exciting venues. One of them is, of course, Leiden Museums, with which we have close cooperations. And I'll mention later a course that you can actually take inside the museum and work with collections and materials in the Museum of Volkenkunde, which is the ethnographic museum here in Leiden. But you could also work with collections at the Rijksmuseum van Oudheden, which is the Antiquities Museum here in Leiden, where you might have heard of the recent exhibit on Kemet, Egypt, that attracted a lot of attention. And so you can see that we are very well connected to a number of institutes, to a number of resources, but at the same time, we are connected to the rest of the world. So as part of our program, as part of the Research in May program, you will also have access to Leiden institutes abroad, such as the Leiden Institute in Istanbul, Cairo, or Rabat, or other institutes with which we are affiliated, for example, in Indonesia and India, where some of our students are conducting research. So this gives you a sense of where you can go and what kind of institutional support you'll have. But you might also wonder about what kind of languages are on offer here, because you might want to study more, you might want to become more proficient in these languages for your research. And so we also have a possibility to become both beginner or more advanced in a variety of languages, starting from Arabic, Persian, and Turkish, and going all the way to Japanese, Korean, or Manchu. Now, this, we think, offers so much breadth to our students, and together with local institutes that provide interesting lectures and guests from abroad, like the Leiden Asia Center or the International Institute for Asian Studies, we think this makes us an attractive location for you to come and conduct your studies. At the same time, Leiden is an absolutely photogenic city. It is vivid, it's cozy, it's centrally located. And we think that places you at the heart of many different networks and opportunities here in the Netherlands. Here are some of the materials. I'm not going to give away this because actually one of our students, Ahmed, who also sent us a video, is going to talk about how he discovered these unique manuscripts that nobody had studied before at Leiden University libraries and turned them into his fantastic thesis topic, for which he actually got a cum laude and is graduating next week. So we're also excited about that. Now, you might wonder, okay, so this sounds all really attractive. How does the course package actually work? What is the structure of this Research MA program? Unlike many of the MA programs here in Leiden, the Research MA program is a 2-year program. There are not many of these, and this gives you both scope and depth for you to explore your research interests. So the program is organized across 2 years. And in your first year, you will take several core courses. We want you to get a strong foundation in critical area studies, so thinking critically about what it means to do research in a place like Asia or the Middle East, and then try to equip you with several tools, several methods that will allow you to design your own research project and then carry it out. So kind of the goal of your first year is, of course, to get some foundational courses, to get some grasp on method. And by the end of your first year, we want you to produce an outline of a research proposal that you will actually then go to carry out in your second year. So your second year is then dedicated fully to conducting this research and then writing it up. And what this usually means is that you have a significant amount of time to really carry out firsthand, hands-on, primary sources research in an area of your choice, in a location of your choice. And then when you have completed that, you return and with the help of supervision, you will write your thesis. This means that there's a lot more courses that you take in your first year, and in your second year, you're sort of embarking on a lot more individual work. And this is the broad lines of the program, but I'm happy to also answer more specific questions about how this works in terms of how do you assemble this. Because one of the other assets that we see with our program is that it gives you a lot of freedom. As you will see, there's only 2 core courses that are required in the first year. And other than that, you have the freedom to combine and compile and put together your own research program based on your interests and with the help of the study coordinator. Now, what this means is that you actually have quite a large catalog of courses from which to choose at Leiden. And this is a little bit technical, but in essence, some of them will be slightly higher level. So we call these 600 level courses, and some of them are a lower level, 500 or 400 level courses. But it really gives you the option to choose from a catalog of offerings, not only from Middle Eastern studies or Asian studies, but we also have cross-listed courses with programs in the digital humanities. And we also have courses with national research schools in the Netherlands where you can take courses on topics that can be very niche and that might not be offered in Leiden. So in many ways, it also opens up a huge box of offerings for our students. Now, just a couple of examples of what these course titles might be like. In Middle East studies, where I also do a lot of research and teaching, We have courses, historical courses that give you a good grasp of historical development, but we also have courses that look at really topical current events like oil waste and water. What are the environmental issues currently affecting communities in the Middle East and North Africa, right? Also issues around power and resistance in the modern Middle East, looking at the role of social movements and political revolution. And so you can see this is just a small selection of courses that are open to you. And the same applies to courses in Asian studies. In Asian studies, you also have a wide variety of choices. My favorite is the hands-on research experience in the Volkenkunde, because you actually get to work with curators and objects from inside the museum. But there are many other courses that you can choose from. You can look at China's migrant worker culture and look at poetry written by migrant workers in Chinese. There's also fantastic courses that look at creativity and paintings and art and artistry in contemporary China. And again, these are just a few samplings. And if you want to get more of a sense, our study guides are online and they're open for you to browse and get a sense of what other topics you could cover in your courses here at Leiden. Now, like I said, our main goal is that by the end of the program, you will be able to design and carry out and put together your own very specific original research project. And this is why you also are allowed quite a bit of freedom in carving out this path. And the idea is that during your second year, you will spend a substantial amount of time, 20 credits, which is quite a lot, at least, to do research. And this is either abroad or in the Netherlands. And right now, your potential future colleagues are in places like Indonesia, where we'll hear from in a moment. Some of them are in Kathmandu conducting research. Some of them are actually in Beirut doing interviews. And all of this has been arranged with help of scholarships, both here that allow students to go abroad and do fieldwork, or with collaborations with various institutes there. And sometimes people also combine this with some coursework. But usually they spend the majority of it just being in the place, doing fieldwork, and accumulating information. And the thesis, right, the project that you write at the end of your research MA, which is kind of like the capstone, crowning glory of your time that you will spend with us. These are some examples of projects that have been graduated, that have been successful, many of them cum laude, many of them also have been shortlisted for national Dutch prizes in the humanities. And I've just highlighted one of them on Algerian youth and the contestation of their sound on TikTok. Mostly because this was also a project that I supervised. It was a student that I was the supervisor of. And Luca wanted really badly to go to Algeria and actually interview young people and how they used social media. But her thesis happened during the pandemic, and so she wasn't allowed to travel. And what she did then, she became a TikToker herself and used TikTok as a way of interacting with Algerian youth and creating content together in dialogue, and then used that to build a website and to build her thesis around it. And it was one of the projects that was shortlisted for a prize because it was so original and fabulous. And so this gives you an idea of the kind of scope, the kind of liberty you have in designing your topic and really following, something that you're passionate about and super interested in. Similarly for Asian studies, we have a number of students that have looked at leadership in a leaderless movement, so looking at the umbrella movement, umbrella revolution, and how this was depicted, but also people who are looking at Chinese political soft power and how this is being played out through the Belt and Road Initiative. And all of our students get support from their supervisor, which we try to match their interest with so that they can get the closest possible support when following these topics. Okay, so enough for me. I think it's time that you actually hear from two students from our program, and I'll first have you hear Ahmed Rifai, who's currently graduating with a research master cum laude in Middle East Studies. He's going to tell us a little bit about why he chose this program.
Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed Rifa'i. I come from Aleppo, Syria, and I recently graduated having done a research master in Middle Eastern Studies at Leiden University. The reason why I chose to do Middle Eastern Studies is partially, of course, because I come from that region and I was interested and I'm still interested in understanding the politics of that region, especially the ones unfolding after the Arab Spring. The other reason is, of course, because understanding the politics of the Middle East is quite central to understanding the politics of the world in any other region of the world. I think Leiden University is the place to be if you want to do Middle Eastern studies because of the type of expertise that exists at Leiden University, but also the type of sources and databases that you can have access to in Leiden University, some of which I'm going to show you at a later stage in this video. One thing that I personally found very interesting about doing Middle Eastern studies at Leiden University is that when I applied, I was really expecting to talk a lot about the politics of the region because that's the stuff that we mostly see in the news. So wars, violence, civil wars, sectarianism, conflict, refugees, migration. But I was pleasantly surprised that it's way more than that because the Middle East is also more than that. So we cover fields such as cultural production, art, history. We talk about manuscripts. We talk about Islamic history. We talk about Islamic legal history. So as many topics as you can imagine are covered by the study in Leiden University. I brought today a sample. One of the many sources you can have access to. Unfortunately, I couldn't be at the location where you can access these sources to show you the original. So what I did is I downloaded a copy from the online website and I printed it to show you. This is the copy, and this is a biography of Ibn Taymiyyah. He is a very famous medieval Islamic legal scholar. And he is very important because he is central to understanding the Islamic politics at the moment. And this is a biography written about him by one of his students. And it's actually a copy of the biography. And you can access this copy, the original, at Leiden University. In our special collections location of the library, we have a lot of manuscripts in Arabic, in Farsi, in Ottoman Turkish, and in other languages spoken or written in Muslim Muslim countries. You will definitely find that interesting, so please check it out. It's called the Special Collections. This is something maybe interesting to comment on. I expected that speaking Arabic or one of the languages that is spoken in the Middle East is going to be important to completing the study. This is not the case. Of course, it's always a plus if you can access sources in the original language, but I think you'll do just as well if you're only speaking English or any other European languages, as a plus, of course. One of my special moments that I experienced I had many special moments that I experienced doing the research master at Leiden, but one of them was my thesis defense. I got to do it in the building, and I think most of you will do it in the building where Nelson Mandela was and a bunch of other famous people. It's called, or actually the room where they went and they wrote their signature. It's called the Zweetkamertje, the sweat room, Leiden University. Google it, you'll find it. It's very cool. But it was also for me an interesting moment because it brought together all the work and knowledge that I have been accumulating over 2 years, and it was a truly rewarding experience, so to say. Now that I graduated, actually maybe a few weeks ago already now, I'm going to be reading for leisure. I just want to spend some time reading whatever books I find interesting. I do work at the library, so if you ever need anything, you know where to find me, Leiden University Library. And then I'm also looking for PhDs. But at the same time, doing Middle Eastern studies at Leiden University offers you a lot of possibilities in terms of internships and in terms of doing research projects with some of the teachers. So make sure to contact your teachers, and if you have interesting ideas, talk to them. Maybe you get to do research with them on some topics. This is some of the interesting moments that I had at Leiden University, and I'm sure you're going to have your own. Please come to Leiden University. See you around. Salam.
All right, so now you'll get to meet, after meeting Ahmed, you'll get to meet Talisa, who is one of our current students, and she's also the student member of the program board, so she's quite involved in the program and cares a lot about it, but is currently in Yogyakarta conducting her semester of fieldwork, and she has sent us a video to tell you more about why she chose Leiden and what she's actually doing in Yogyakarta. So I'm going to play that now.
Hi everyone, my name is Lisa Schilder and I'm a second year student in the Research Master Asian Studies. So I'm making a short video to kind of explain what has been my experience, what were my expectations, and perhaps this can help you choose the program that's right for you. As I'm recording this, I'm actually recording this from my apartment in Yogyakarta, which indeed is part of my field work. So to answer the first question, why did you choose the program? I always knew I wanted to do a PhD in Asian studies, and more specifically in the field of like cultural politics. And so I've already completed my Master in International Relations with a specialization on culture and cultural politics. But what I was missing for my feeling was a sort of really specific area of focus. I did know about Indonesia and I knew that I wanted to concentrate on Indonesia, but I feel like I really wanted to have a program that allowed me to expand on that interest and to really deepen my knowledge and hone this research skill that I also have to do research on cultural politics in Indonesia. What do you like the most about this program? So what I like the most about the Research Master Asian Studies is that I have the freedom to design the curriculum that's really suited to my own research interests. Starting this program, I had a very specific idea of what my research project would look like. Of course, that changes throughout the course, but it really helped me to orientate what I wanted to do, which courses I wanted to take, that really suited my research interest instead of just taking courses just to be done with some programs. So I would say that what I like the most about the program is that you designed it in such a way to make it work for you. What were the expectations starting this program? Well, actually, I didn't have any expectations. I'm a firm believer that you just kind of have to dive into something to really know the experience. So yeah, I didn't have big expectations. What is the most memorable experience of the Research Master Asian Studies? Well, for me, it's my field work. So my research project is about tattoo artists in Indonesia, and it has honestly been so interesting. Of course, doing field work for the first time is already an interesting experience on its own, but also just living somewhere else, not being there as an exchange student, not being there as a tourist, but really working as a researcher, becoming part of the local community, experiencing such cool things. Like, for example, the shirt that I'm wearing was for an event on women's rights in Yogyakarta, which is not necessarily research, but it's still part of living somewhere else whilst you do research, right? So there's time to work, there's time to explore. Yeah, so my short answer is the coolest experience in this program for me is definitely my field work. What do I want to do after graduation? After graduation, I want to continue with my PhD. I see this Research Master program very much like a sort of pre-PhD program that really prepares me with the skills and the research tools and also substantive knowledge that I need in order to start my PhD program. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, do contact me and I'll be more than happy to help.
All right. Now that you've met two of our students, I can assure you that the rest of the cohorts are just as exciting and just as fun and just as motivated as them. But that means that we need to select them. so like you, and the Research Master has an application program that is quite more substantial than the other MA programs. So the taught MA program in Middle East Studies, for example, or the taught MA program in Asian Studies have quite different requirements when it comes to admission compared to our research MA version. And that is for a variety of reasons. As Talisha and Ahmed also commented, that is because the Research Master functions in many ways as a step towards a PhD trajectory. And that means that we are looking for students who are already quite mature in terms of their idea of research. They're thinking about this a lot more. They're a lot more interested in exploring this academic career path. But that doesn't mean that that's the only field towards which our research program takes you. And I'll say a little bit more about that when I tell you about what kind of jobs our graduates are getting. But in terms of admission to the program, there are several quite key requirements, and they are listed in this slide very nicely, but you can also find them online in our page outlining the admission criteria. And the most important ones are, of course, certain scores in your previous education, but we do not have a requirement for you to have already studied Middle East studies or Asian studies, for example, because we recognize the fact that people come from different backgrounds and they take different paths to arriving at a research MA. And we find that enriching, actually. And we very much consider students with slightly more unorthodox backgrounds, because very often they bring the kind of original, really effervescent thinking to the program. But we do need to comply with certain regulations, so that applies to score tests, for example, for English language tests. And one of the ways in which we assess the preparation of particular candidates to successfully take on this program is through a research proposal and an annotated bibliography. Of course, a research proposal that you submit for admission doesn't have to be the same one that you then end up doing, but we're using this as a way of assessing whether you have the skills and whether you've already sort of been prepared through your previous education to design a potential project. So it's telling us that you know how to think about these things, and possibly that you already have an idea and an interest, and you can articulate that for us in a convincing manner. In the same way that sometimes we have to pitch an idea for funding in academia, this is the same kind of concept. So we give you 2,000 words to really show us that you have a project that you're interested in, and how would you actually go about designing that research. So one of the other things, of course, is sort of motivation letters and things like that. But we really want to show that you are passionate and also prepared to take on research. And this is also different in the Asian Studies track, because while the research MA is 120 ECs over 2 years, there's also a 2-year 120 EC MA Asian Studies program, but they are quite different in that they have different entry requirements. They have an obligatory study abroad part of 1 entire year, which entails quite different arrangements. And it's a much smaller thesis. And so that does not entail the same components as our program. So if you're kind of unsure about this, do reach out to the study advisors from those programs. They can give you a better sense of which one of these Asian Studies tracks might be best suited to your interests. Because we have a lot more variety in Asian Studies, but in the Middle Eastern Studies program, it's quite clear. One of them is a 1-year program where there is no research component, where there is no field work, and the other one is quite larger, gives you more time and also more freedom. So these are the requirements. Now, so Ahmed and Talisha also mentioned internships. This is something that a lot of our students choose to do. On the basis of it, these are not for credit, so sometimes they have to be extracurricular, but if you can make a case that an internship will fit your research project, right? So if you are working in a human rights organization and your thesis will be about that topic, then an internship can also count for credit. But the majority of the time, our students kind of take this on the side because they want to explore also career paths and career options. And these are some of the internships that students have taken on in Asian studies. In Middle East studies, our students have also worked with Greenpeace, also for Brill, the local publisher in Leiden, sort of getting experience in the field of academic publishing. But many of them also intern with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for example, or Dutch embassies abroad. And because we are located in Leiden, which is really close to The Hague and a lot of international organizations, this also positions Research MA students really well to have access to all of these opportunities and all of these different networks. Languages, like I said, really important, and like Ahmed also stressed, there is no formal language requirement to be admitted except for English, because it is an English language program. But in terms of the language that you might want to use in your research, we do want to see if you've given this thought in the application, but then you will be able to take, for example, beginners level courses or intermediate level courses at various different points in your trajectory. Now, one of the topics that, of course, is very important is what kind of career perspectives does this Research MA offer you? And these are some numbers collected by the Career Services in Leiden about successful graduates from Middle Eastern studies, for example. 50% of them found a job within 2 months. Many of them find a job at an academic level, similar with the Asian studies graduates from our program. And some of these jobs span the spectrum of fields and domains. A lot of them go into communication and marketing, but also consultancies. Some of our graduates, our recent graduates, also work for think tanks. For a China studies think tank in Germany. Some of them work for think tanks in the countries where they have done research. Some of them now work as lecturers, also as PhD candidates in universities here in the Netherlands, but also at universities abroad. I actually just this week got an email from a former student, just let me know that she was starting a PhD at the EUI in Florence in Italy, the European University Institute, and she was really excited that her research master in Leiden allowed her to take that step. So these are some ideas, but of course, you can also get more from our career services team, which is also available for questions. We have a mentor network of alumni who are happy to answer questions. And of course, once you are in Leiden, we have a variety of resources that can help you explore the job market while you're still doing your Research MA. So that is it in a nutshell. These are some extracurricular. There's always a lot more to do, but you will have access to these slides later, so you can click through all of the links. But this is our program, and we would be very happy to hear from you. And if you want to reach out, the study coordinator mailbox, which is the person who is going to be fielding questions as requests, will also be available to you. So I'll wrap up my part of the presentation now, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have and that I hopefully can answer. All right, so the first question is about, is this mostly about language level or just background? I think if this is just about language level, the YELT test is simply a formality that is a requirement, unfortunately. So that has to be submitted. I think in certain cases, and this is something that has to be handled at the central admissions office, but in certain cases, if students have had a previous education fully in English, or if they've completed a large number of coursework in English, then that requirement might be waived. How competitive is it to get into the elective courses? Well, on average, we actually have secured spots, reserved spots for research MA students in all of these courses because we are actually a small, really selective MA to start with. We don't have very large cohorts, which allows us to reserve spots on the electives, usually 2 to 3 spots for research MA students, which means that you will get priority over other students from other programs who are trying to get these electives. Work experience and research skills. This is, of course, interesting for us to take into account. But for example, when you're submitting your application materials, you are putting together your motivation letter, you have your transcripts, right? And you're putting together the research proposal. Now, if you only tell us about your research experience in the CV, and we then kind of don't see it translated into the research proposal, that might not be very convincing, right? So always think about, these are, of course, really interesting to us, but then we kind of have to see them, right? Sort of don't just tell us, but also show us that you have research skills from previous experience. Okay, so somebody who's still, Jan is still writing a BA thesis and doesn't feel very creative in terms of doing research yet. This is fine because a lot of our cohorts, like I said, they will submit a research proposal as part of an entry requirement, but then while they're starting, during their first year, they very often kind of come up with radically new ideas. Like I said, context, right? Pandemics can have, force you to change your plans, and you can have creative sparks at any point. But I would say for yourself, make it clear, why are you interested in doing the research master, and what, would it give you to do it now? And, why not wait another year if you're not feeling yet super keen on it, right? So give yourself time. Sometimes, obviously, you can apply at any point to us, but it's good to kind of be sure. The more convinced you are, the more convincing it will be when we read your application. All right, the average grade requirement. The average grade requirement is your entire GPA transcript. So that is for the entirety of your BA courses, because we get applicants from all over the world. So there is no way to kind of pick out research courses. So we really do look at your entire GPA. But then we will also see if for example, when we see your transcript, we'll see if you're actually stronger in particular topics and not so much in others. Of course, we will take that into account. We do not really have any numbers for the acceptance rate, but for example, I can tell you that in the previous 2 application rounds, we have selected 12 to 15 students. So that is the size of our cohort. And those 12 to 15 students were out of an application pool of maybe 100, maybe 80 students. So that gives you a sense of how many. We do not have a cap on the program, so there's no cap on our admission rate. We really do just look at the quality of applications, and if you can convince us that this is a good fit and that you possess the necessary skills. And so we don't really we would like to have as many as 25, but we might have only as many as 12 because the conditions are only fulfilled by that many. So it's quite a small and cozy cohort. All of our students know each other. They go on social outings twice a year, and so I think that also makes it a really pleasant place to be. Is it manageable to take on a side job during your studies? I feel like this was a question for one of our students because I think many of them do take on part-time jobs while doing their studies. I think my advice as chair of the program is that it's probably not, because this is a full-time research master. So that means that you are expected to, the number of hours that are required as part of coursework, as part of research, is the equivalent of actually having a full-time job for the period of 2 years. And so obviously, you know, there's times when it'll be less busy, and there's times when people do take on small, for example, research assistant jobs. But you have to be careful that you don't overburden yourself, because we don't want you to get a burnout. All right. Sarah has a question about interesting research projects that students have done before. So one of the ones that I mentioned in the presentation was one of my own students who did research through TikTok, but another student, the one who just wrote to me to say that she's starting a PhD at EUI, she conducted research with the Syrian Archive, which is an NGO based in Berlin who's been documenting human rights abuses in Syria. And so she went there and she actually volunteered with them and wrote the only original study of this kind. So that was one. We also have students who are doing research right now with Buddhist nuns in Buddhist monasteries. And that's also really, really exciting, because they get to be there and they get to really experience the things that they're researching. I hope that answers it. Does it matter? No, so this is a very good question. Does it matter what discipline the research proposal is from? Not at all, because in the sense that if you are interested in doing an anthropological project, then by all means write your research proposal as based in an anthropological discipline or a historical discipline or political economy, whatever field you want to do your research in. Put that in the research proposal, because like I said, we have a variety of fields represented here. And so we're going to actually look at a diversity of perspectives. So we don't just have one approach. So our students do research on things that are quite historical and pre-modern. Some of them do research on topics that are very contemporary. And some of them, yes, do very ethnographic anthropological research. And each of them writes their own proposal from that discipline. So you don't have to feel like you have to speak from another discipline. All right. There are no more questions. Well, thank you so much to those of you who have attended and for the questions. And we'll be really happy to get any follow-up questions you have over email later on. Yeah, we hope to read some of your applications in the next admission round. Thank you so much.